I still remember a couple years ago randomly coming across a song that struck me very profoundly. The song's name was Lost Highway, about a man who realized he had taken the wrong road in life and felt it was too late to go back. What amazed me was that the man singing the song sounded like he was about 60 years old, but I would later find out he wasn't much older than I was. Instantly, I tried to find out everything I could about the man. The way I was living my life at the time somehow resonated with the pain I felt in his voice. That man, I would come to find out, was Hank Williams, the rambling blues singer from Alabama that died of a morphine overdose at the age of 29. Over the past couple years, I would randomly dabble back into his music from time to time, but nothing compared to that first time I heard that ghastly howl that blasted over my headphone speakers. Nicknamed the Hillbilly Shakespeare, the country music legend didn't live in this world for too long. Described by many that knew him as a troubled and lonely man, Hank would struggle with chronic back pain and substance abuse that would hinder his success and ultimately lead to his demise. I'm Jesse Diaz, and this is the story of Hank Williams.
And now, folks, let's have a nice, warm Opry reception for my friend on his very first appearance on the Grand Ole Opry, Hank Williams.
Well, can you imagine?
Well, they didn't want to let him on at first. Now, doggone it, they can't get him on.
Well, you know, on these Saturday mornings when I play all the Hank Williams records, it's mighty fine to have all these best-selling records. But this morning, man, we got something better than that. We have the man himself, Hank Williams. Hank, how are you? Oh, fine, Bob. It's awfully good to see you again, fella. Hank's mighty good to see you.
Born Hiram Williams on September of 1923, he would begin drinking by the time he was 10 years old. According to his autobiography, Hank Williams first learned to play the guitar from a man named Rufus Payne, an African-American blues player that would sit on street corners and play his music for a living. Hank would go on to credit him as being his only teacher. By the time he would grow to an adolescent, there was no denying his talent. He was being booked for shows as a part of the Drifting Cowboys all throughout the South. But at the age of 16, he was already struggling to control his drinking. All the other members of his band would be drafted into the war, except Hank due to his bad back. This would leave him looking for a new group to play his music with, but all potential replacements refused to work with him on account of his drunkenness and unreliability. Even the local radio stations would be fed up with his behavior and fire him for being a habitual drunk. This would make him leave the music business altogether and work on and off for the rest of the war. His days of being a promising young act seemed to be long gone. Due to the increasing severity of his back injury, he was unable to work any more labor jobs, so he resorted back to the only thing he knew, playing his guitar and singing the blues. During this period, Hank would perform in small medicine shows all throughout Alabama to make ends meet. And one of these shows is where he would meet his first wife, Audrey Shepard. She was also a singer, and so her and Hank would begin touring together. This is where he would begin to see real success again. He would sign a major record label deal with MGM Records, but just like everything in Hank's life, the marriage was tumultuous and provided him with many sorrows and regrets. Much of the raw emotion in Hank's lonesome melodies were specifically attributed to Audrey. Things only got worse when on a hunting trip, he would suffer an accident that would require him to undergo a spinal fusion that would leave him even more dependent on painkillers. The pain that was felt in Hank's music has often been categorized not just by a physical discomfort, but a range of emotions that include depression, distress, disquiet, and despair. In his short time, he certainly understood the nature of suffering. Throughout his hard life, he seemed to have mastered the poetry of pain. The lament over sin, that suggested the possibility of salvation.
Let's sing an old camp meeting song, one that Hank Williams wrote, I Saw the Light.
At the outset of his career, Hank himself would write and sing the now famous I Saw the Light, a story about an aimless life filled with sin, but in the depths of the night he would claim, "My dear Savior Jesus Christ has come." He would begin preaching in a slow voice over his records about wealth not saving your soul. After the label wanted him to make more radio-friendly music, he would begin releasing music under his alter ego, Luke the Drifter, a Christian apocalyptic vagabond who went across country preaching the gospel and doing good deeds, the opposite of Hank Williams, the drunkard who cheated on women and lived life on the edge. Hank's sister once said, "If you want to know the real Hank, check Luke the Drifter." No other person understood him better than his own created persona. While Hank Williams was the rock star on top of the world, Luke was the sermonizing preacher who saw life from the eyes of the poor. This split in personality was what in some ways created torment for him. Through Luke, he would attempt to exercise his religious convictions and wisdom of the way he saw the world. His songs would break into a twilight zone between the living and the dead. Songs such as A Message to My Mother, about a young man lying on his deathbed, reassuring his mother that he was saved and would see her again in heaven. Indeed, he may have wanted to be remembered as Luke the Enlightened One, but his reality was much different. In various points of his life, he would attempt to get sober, but it never lasted long. He checked himself into the North Louisiana Sanitarium at the fall of 1951, but was unable to quit drinking for good. Afterwards, he began to deteriorate, physically and mentally, putting on a lot of weight and losing his hair. During the latter stages of 1951, he suffered a minor heart attack that would leave him unable to tour the following year. All this at the ripe old age of 27.
I said, "Hank, come back to bed." And he said, "Baby," he said, "I see Jesus coming down the road, and he's coming after old Hank."
He went down to the church that morning to come back and put his foot up on the step. Says, "Old Hank won't be with y'all another Christmas." Says, "I'm close to the Lord and I've never been in my life."
Years of hard living were starting to catch up to him. The legend of Hank Williams was coming to an end. By the end of 1952, his mother flew him back home to Montgomery so he could have some rest and time to get well. Despite his health problems, he would accept to perform one last show in West Virginia. On a cold New Year's Day in 1953, Hank would jump into a baby blue Cadillac, driven by college student Charles Carr. This would be Hank's last ride. The last 24 hours of the singer-songwriter's life is shrouded in mystery. Many historians and biographers have speculated about what really happened on that fateful day. There are many contradictory statements about Hank's condition and his final trip. All that is for sure known is that he was pronounced dead at the Oak Hill Hospital at 7 a.m. on January 1st, 1953. His last song titled, "I'll Never Make It Out This World Alive." I think it's only fitting to end this video with a quote from Hank himself that I think echoes the whole message behind his story. No matter how good or bad you think you are, you have no right to be the judge, to criticize and condemn. Just think, but for the grace of God, it would be you instead of them. Once again, thank you for watching this video. I've been Jesse Diaz. See you on the next one.